South Florida is known for its endless paradise features, but underneath that layer are the stories of courage, sacrifice, and dedication. This is Voices of the Brave, a journey into the lives of those who chose to serve the United States of America. Join us as we take you to the front lines to hear the experiences of veterans and hopeful enlistees.
No one understands a service person like another service person.
Definitely a big culture shock for me.
I knew I was going to get called up for the Vietnam War.
Camaraderie of the military was what kept me in all those years.
The reasons why someone would want to join the U.S. military are numerous. However, there are some that prevail more than others. The lack of affordable college is just one of many reasons some decide to join the military.
Well, I couldn't afford college. I was there for 2 years, and then I needed money to finish my last 2 years. And I was one of the few nationwide to get a 2-year non-technical ROTC scholarship out of Ohio. And obviously I was very patriotic and wanted to serve my country as well. So it worked out extremely well.
So I graduated high school at 17, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I tried a community college, so none of my family went to college. So college was really scary for me. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. And so a couple semesters at a community college, I realized that I wasn't paying attention. I was going out, and I just decided to go to the recruiting office and see what the lifestyle of a military personnel would be. And the recruiter explained to me that we get to travel a lot. It gave you a lot of structures. You're able to get paid and move around and do cool things. And I thought this would be a good start for 4 years and then go back into college life.
Others enlist because of a sense of moral duty. Veteran Juan Duenas was born in Cuba and wanted to give back to the nation that gave his family a second chance.
I told myself that the United States gave me something, gave me freedom for me and my parents, for my grandparents. So I had to give something back of myself to the United States for giving me the freedom they gave me from the Castro regime. So I joined up to give back. I did sign the ultimate sacrifice. I did sign the piece of paper saying I will give back to this country what they gave me.
Others joined in preparation for the possibility of being drafted.
One day in August, every young man sat in front of the TV, and they would put all the days of the year into a barrel, and they'd roll them around, and they would pull them out, and it went from 1 to 365. If you got 365, good chance that you weren't going to get called up. If you got 1, you're probably going to be gone pretty soon. So my fraternity brothers who were my age, we were sitting in one of the TV room as they were drawing our date of birth out of, and mine came up 61. So I knew I was going to get called up for the Vietnam War, and I said, well, if I'm going to get called up, I'll go in as an officer. So I made a decision to join the ROTC program, and immediately at the age of 21, I then went into the military.
I joined in 1968. I graduated high school in 1966. The reason I joined was at that time the Vietnam War was going on, and I wanted to select what branch of service that I would most benefit from. So I joined the Navy, joined the hospital corps, and was a hospital corpsman. And from there, with the education I received in the Navy, I became a nurse.
Others joined simply for the devotion and patriotism towards America.
A lot of people have different reasons for joining the military. Some are education benefits, financial benefits, health benefits. You want a regular job. You want a nice pension at the end of it. Others, and a vast majority, joined for, like I did, for patriotism reasons. You want to give back to this great country that gave my grandparents a chance when they moved in from Lebanon, over 100 years ago now. And we want to give back to our communities and protect those who can't protect themselves. So while there are different motivations for people wanting to join the military, I think all of them, when they get in, love the camaraderie and a sense of mission and sense of purpose that they feel.
Military service members endure overwhelming challenges that push their physical and mental capacities. According to 2021 meta-analysis study reviewed by Mary West and Katie Yockey, depression affects 23% of service members during their active duty and 20% of the veterans after service. On the other hand, the research made by the National Institute of Mental Health, 8.4% of the general population suffered at least one major depressive episode in 2020. These statistics show that depression affects the members of the U.S. military more than it affects civilians. This is due to the different stressors members have to go through during and after their service.
PTSD is a trauma that happens in your life, right? An accident, a loss of a child, a loss of a spouse, a loss of parents. Anything can cause PTSD. Not only the servicemen. The problem with the servicemen is we see a lot of dead bodies. Mine was pretty much well controlled because I was old enough. But when you got an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, so now let's go move this kid and train him for combat. You train them from combat. You can train them all you want for combat until they experience the actual death, the smell of death, the smell of burning flesh, the smell or the sights of body parts. Nobody can train a child. Nobody can train a child of that.
Homelessness is another factor that affects a significant portion of the veteran population. According to the study presented in 2022 by Valor Healthcare, 580,000 individuals were in need of housing in the U.S., and almost 13% of the adult population that are experiencing homelessness are veterans.
I think sometimes if you're in the military and you get out and you've had these experiences where you were in Vietnam or you're in Afghanistan or you're in Iraq, you can't relate to the normal person who doesn't even have an idea what this is like except for maybe what they see on a TV movie or TV show. And I think they just don't know how to make that relation, or they just haven't been able to forget what they saw, and it just makes them more isolated and more isolated and more isolated, and I think that also then perpetuates the homelessness.
While the psychological impact of military life is a prevalent topic, there's other challenges that can impact service life. Chris Eddy, a former intelligence officer, shares his experience with the pressure of his role.
When I was in, I would just say that you might miss something, right? What is that one piece of intelligence that you didn't request or that you overlooked, and maybe something bad happened to that? It doesn't have to be a terrorist strike. It could be a new gang moves into your area and you didn't know it ahead of time, and because of that, some people were robbed, right, or their car was stolen. So what are you forgetting, or what are you omitting because of time, resource constraints, or you just can't watch everything? And that weighs heavily on our people in the intelligence career field. So much so that you never have the perfect intelligence. You make the best estimate based on the information you're able to gather and based on your prior experience. So I would say overall, that's probably it, that you're afraid of missing that one piece of information that could have prevented an attack.
Women face the same demands and expectations as their male counterparts, but often additional layers of obstacles. According to the U.S. Department of Defense, a demographics report from 2021 found that women made up 17.3% of the active duty force and 21.4% of the National Guard. While the numbers have grown, some think that there are double standards for women who want to be treated fairly.
I think for women serving in the military, it is definitely different. There are less women serving in the military, so we are viewed as the minority. And there are some double standards for things as far as like PT tests. We have a different PT test standard when I was in, and I would always max, and I had sergeants that was like, well, it's because you're a girl, and they would kind of downplay all of my accomplishments. And then another double standard is like you do get a lot of like oh, if you do this for me, then, you know, we'll move you up, or, you know, you kind of get different treatment. So it's kind of like you are confused a little bit what your role is as a military woman. Do you want me to be a woman? Do you want to be treated equally? So it's kind of like putting on both masks, if I were to say.
The challenges not only involve those who serve, but their families. Parents often come across a wave of emotions with every mission. A huge barrier for former Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Gammon was not being able to help his wife taking care of their son while he was gone.
Well, for me, it was tougher than probably, well, it's tough on a lot of people, especially if you have young kids. I happen to have a son with a disability, so that meant that I left my wife to be able to handle all the difficulties that my son goes through when you have an individual, and you know, when you have a child with a disability. And for that reason, I have stayed very active in supporting, you know, that. So that was probably the biggest challenge, is knowing that I was gone and my wife had to deal with that on her own.
Unfortunately, my mom does have like a full-time job, and she has 5 other children, so they weren't able to see me during basic training or any of the graduations. So communication was tough. I know in like basic training, you get like 1 phone call or whatnot, and as far as like my whole active duty career, it was really hard for them to understand like what my work schedule is like, because they don't understand training and exercises and all this. So I definitely lost a lot of communication with them over the years, and they weren't really a part of my military experience. As far as myself, I was able to take leave, or PTO as the civilian call it, and go to see them like every so often. I remember like missing, you know, a lot of holidays, Christmas, you know, birthdays and stuff like that. But whenever I had time, I always made a priority to go see them.
We were raising young kids. My wife was a retired FBI agent, so she was on the job as well. You just figure out how to get them to doctor's appointments, try to see as many sporting events as you can. You know, certainly people in the military and law enforcement miss their kids' birthdays, you miss anniversaries, you miss Christmases. That's to be expected, but I was very fortunate not only to have an understanding wife and children, but a wife that was in law enforcement and knew the type of deployment schedule that we had.
Members of the U.S. forces might lose contact with family and friends, but they create special bonds with their comrades, even after being discharged.
I belong to a Chiefs Association, so we have meetings once a month. A friend of mine I made in 1969, I keep in touch with, he lives in Jupiter. And I was on Facebook and I get a message from this person. His name was David, and he says, "Are you the Rick who went to Hospital Corps School in 1969? I said, yes. Are you the kid that worked in the movie theater when you was in high school? And he said, yes. So there was a 50-year gap, and he found me on Facebook. So that was pretty slick, and we still keep in touch with that.
I moved to Miami, Florida from Lowell, Massachusetts. When I was going back to school, I didn't get a really big sense of like a veteran community. And so going home, none of my family served. So I had this like thing inside of me, like I couldn't tell anyone, or like some sense of community was missing. So I got accepted at University of Massachusetts. I had the honor program, but I just felt like something was missing. So with my military benefits, I know that I can basically go anywhere. So one of the states that I really looked into, I really wanted to move to, was Florida. And I kind of did a little bit of soul searching of like what place would be fit for me, like Tampa or like, you know, Destin, Florida. But eventually I chose Miami, Florida, because they had a really good diversity. And FIU, I know, is a state school, a public school, and they had a very military-friendly campus.
Relationship between our comrades is a brotherhood. Remember that. Us in the military, we make jokes about the Marines. We make jokes about, the Marines and the crayons. The Navy being the Uber for the Marines. The Army of the grunts of the world. The Air Force are the flyboys. But at the end of the day, we work together. We have to watch each other back. So how's the relationship with my contracts? We were brothers, we were family.
The general officers that I served with in the Air Force, we just emailed each other in the last few days, just because memories will come up of when we were meeting, or an anniversary will come up. And it's just nice to touch base with them. And I still do on the FBI side. I was just there yesterday for a retirement of a friend, and it's just nice touching base with those old friends.
Military services created invaluable skills and experiences from leadership to discipline. These skills shape people into resilient leaders. Let's hear from those who have transformed military training into skills they use in their daily life.
Learned how to work with people, and I learned that people could trust me to do the job that they wanted me to do.
I learned how to work in team, I learned how to manage teams, and I learned how to sometimes follow people as well, because also being in the military, leaders are important, but it's also really important to know how to take orders as well.
Just leadership. That nature abhors a vacuum, so if you don't have a positive leader, a negative leader could take their place. We need more positivity in this country, just like our military, we're a can-do spirit. We don't tear other people down, we build them up, and that's what we need throughout our nation.
As our journey through the lives of these brave veterans comes to a close, we reflect on the lessons and takeaways from their service. Each story is a little window to the enduring impact of military life. Here are their final thoughts.
Me personally, I feel that every male and female should serve their country one way or another, whether it's in the Peace Corps, Tri-Corps, or the military. Have the government supply your education, whether it's 4-year college, 2-year college, trade school. It's a great benefit to you as a person, helps you grow, gives you a sense of patriotism. The education you get, the travel you get is outstanding. I would encourage everybody to do it, everybody.
I get asked often, what would you do differently? And maybe at your stage in your life, people were asking you that already. But as you get older, people say, well, would you change anything? And I wouldn't change anything. It's just fortuitous that I was in the Air Force at the right time, the right place, the right assignments. I was able to get promoted ahead of my peers in several cases because of the circumstances. But I wouldn't change one thing. You have ups and downs in any career field, but it's a good feeling knowing that you served your country and that you continue to serve your country in whatever capacity. And it's okay, if you have a regular job at Pepsi or IBM or Starbucks, but find that little way, those few hours a week, to give back to your community. It could be picking up trash in your neighborhood. It could be helping out the YMCA. So I would urge anyone to step outside of your normal life and try to give back to your community in whatever small way, and you'll see how rewarding that is.
As we conclude our journey through Voices of the Brave, we've glimpsed into the lives of those who have chosen to serve the country, each with their own motivations and challenges. From the bustling landscapes of South Florida to the heartfelt stories of sacrifice and dedication, these individuals have embarked on paths that shape their identities and futures. In a world where challenges are ever present, their stories inspire us to strive for unity, understanding, and deep appreciation for those who serve. Let us carry forward their voices and honor their contributions with gratitude and respect.